Welcome to the Adirondacks. This is the bog video. I've been so excited to make this video for months now. I have developed bog fever recently, where I've been really interested in wanting to learn about how bogs form, why they have such interesting and rare plants, and how unique their ecosystems are. Josie just handed me a cranberry to taste, and it was so good. It was really tart. But we're going to learn about the plants that we'll find in bogs. And I'm so excited to tell you about the geological connection of bogs here in the Adirondacks and why there are so many of them in this mountain range in upstate New York. I'm from New York, and I grew up going to the Adirondacks when I was little and also in college for geology field trips. And as I've gotten older and learned more about the connections of ecology with geology, the more I've been interested in learning about the reasons why there are certain ecosystems in certain geological foundations. I'm really excited to learn about this, and I can't wait to take you along with me.
They're called deer mushrooms, and usually they have more like brown. The fuzz.
Wow,
It's so pink.
that's so beautiful.
In the middle of the bog.
Ooh.
Something swimming.
Really?
And it was eating one of those metal hogs.
We are at Paul Smith's Vic Visitor Interpretive Center, and we're about to go see the bog here and learn about some bog ecology from my friends Josie and Laura. It's such a beautiful trail here. I've been here once before, like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm so happy to be back. It smells amazing. We've already seen a ton of really cool plants and some cool rocks, and we even saw a couple beavers playing around by their lodge in the water. And this place is just so magical, and I'm already learning so much, so can't wait to bring you along today and learn about bogs.
So you may be wondering, Becky, you've said the word bog like 40 times so far in the first couple minutes of this video, but I still have no idea what a bog is. So I'm going to fix that for you. Before we get into our further adventures and explore the bogs, I want you to know what a bog even is. So a bog is a type of wetland. So think of wetlands as the big umbrella over top of things like swamps, marshes, bogs, and fens. And a wetland is defined as a land area that is submerged with water for at least part of the year. And this water is shallow water, meaning it can be anywhere from a few inches up to 6 feet. Now, swamps and marshes are different from what we're going to be talking about today because they're freshwater wetlands, and bogs and fens, which we're focusing on today, are acidic. And swamps are dominated by woody plants like trees and shrubs, whereas marshes are more things like grasses and sedges and not as much trees and shrubs. Now, if you think of wetlands as the big umbrella, think of another umbrella, like a little umbrella under the big umbrella, and that little umbrella is peatlands. So a peatland is described as a type of wetland where wet and cold conditions prevent plants from decomposing. dead plants accumulate as peat over thousands or hundreds of years. And peat or peat soil is comprised of mainly living and or dead sphagnum moss. And we're going to get more into mosses, especially sphagnum mosses, a little bit later. So don't get too bogged down on that right now. There are two main types of peatlands that we're going to be talking about. I think there's probably only two in general, but as far as I know, what we're going to be talking about today is two of them. So there's fens and bogs. Obviously, we mentioned bogs, but you probably don't know what a fen is because I didn't even really know what a fen was until I started being obsessed with this. The definition of a bog, finally, is a nutrient-poor, acidic wetland dominated by sphagnum mosses, sedges, and shrubs, and evergreen trees rooted in deep peat. So there are trees, but they're not super abundant. They're really only in the areas where there's deep enough peat for the roots to root into. So bogs are essentially cut off from any type of water flow. So they don't have surface inflow of streams and they don't have groundwater having fresh water pumped up into the bog. They are essentially cut off, and because of that, the water is very stagnant, and when it sits there, it just becomes very acidic, and because of that, there are many types of plants that cannot survive in these conditions. And because of that, the plants that you do see are usually specialists that have adapted to this type of very extreme acidic environment. Okay, so a fen is a type of peatland that is very similar to bogs, but the main difference is that there is some flow of water. There's not a lot, there's not as much as there is in like a swamp or a marsh, but there is some, meaning that it's less acidic and there's enough water flow that the nutrients are able to cycle a little bit more, and there's a little bit more variety of species and plants that can survive in fens because of this. So fens will receive water either from an inflowing stream and or groundwater, and like I said, bogs do not have that. All right, so now you have the basics. Now let's move on to the adventure.
Is it leaves and it's a little creeping guy?
Hobblebush,
Yeah, but they're called princess pines.
princess pines.
A cedar. Yeah, the cypress family. But then there's also Atlantic white cedar.
Oh my god.
It's for one. I forget which one. There's a little eyelash cup. Oh, and all of this.
Oh yeah,
Lichens.
lichens.
They're little cups.
I think I just saw one of those really big dragonflies.
Ooh. I hope it's the Canada darner.
I couldn't remember the name. There's another one behind Josie. Look.
Oh my gosh, Laura, I think it might be.
Yes. It's huge. It's like a bird. So the type of moss that you'll find in bogs is called sphagnum moss, but that's the genus, and there are lots of different species. Here in the Northeast, I think there are about 29 species of sphagnum moss alone, and Josie is going to help me find a few different species here in this bog today. So let's go! Here we have Josie and Laura hanging out on the boardwalk, looking at some stuff. Hi! I'm a biologist.
And I'm a botanist that also loves mushrooms. We are in a fen, which is a type of bog that's not as nutrient poor, but is also a pretty harsh acidic environment. I think sometimes it's hard to tell because you can't necessarily see where the water input is, but sometimes the plant communities can tell you the difference because fens have more nutrients, and so there are often more plants in them. These are all types of sphagnum moss, which is a genus of moss that is what contributes to peat formation. And so the sphagnum mosses release hydrogen ions into the water, which makes it really acidic, and somehow that exchange is how they are able to uptake the few nutrients that are in the water, like calcium and phosphorus.
That's crazy.
And they're all very like star shaped and have these kinds of dense heads.
It's like only wanting to focus on your face. Okay. Oh, that's so cool.
And lots of different colors.
We have books. We brought books. This is one of them. We have a whole traveling library with us. Jerry Jenkins makes the best guide. So this is the Josie's moss guide, and look at it. Look how thick it is. And so last night we were looking at the section of sphagnum mosses. And where is it? Here. It starts here. Josie is going to be helping us figure out what we're looking at.
We can only dream of figuring out.
Yeah. She'll know. She knows more than I do.
A lot of the peat mosses are pretty hard to ID in the field, so it's really just guesses. And yeah, this is a little red one. And so there is one that's called Sphagnum rubellum, but I'm honestly, which is highly likely, but to confirm it, I think you would need a microscope.
And are there ones that like you can tell more from your hand lens and not need a microscope?
Yeah, so one like that has these really spiky leaves that come out of the side is a little bit easier. We might see that one. And like this section sphagnum has these like really curled leaves that make the branches really broad, and so that one is a little bit easier to get to section, but
So you said you think this one is
maybe rubellum. Or like this really red.
Yeah, that's
really
beautiful.
There is probably. But who knows?
I had no idea there were this many types of mosses. I really was like, oh, sphagnum moss. That's all of it's the same. It's just one type of moss.
I had no idea about this one. The brown ones are hard.
And so these are individual species, right? That's
crazy. So sphagnum is the genus, and then they're all separate species, and then there are different sections of species grouped together.
I wonder how many we'll see today.
Creature. Oh my gosh, it has like a second head coming out of the side. Wait, it's got 3. That's really weird. Oh, tiny little like mite or something crawling around on it.
To like a person who wouldn't know like where they are, this would look like it's solid land, but if you were to walk out there, you'd probably fall, depending on where you're walking, it'd be really wet, right? And you might fall into water.
It'd definitely be very wet. Yeah, when you smush down the moss, you feel the cold water. Feels pretty solid, but sometimes if you jump,
It's like floating and the whole thing kind of wiggles.
yeah.
Seems like it might be pretty deep peat, I'm guessing, because the roots for the trees probably need to go down a little.
Yeah, I think it varies a lot, the depth of the peat, and it doesn't always mean that it's older either.
It could just mean like it's a really fast cycle of dying and regrowing.
I think I remember someone did a core here on the side of the boardwalk, and it was like 8.5 meters deep.
Wow.
the head of the moss is just like a little pom-pom. Whereas like a lot of these other ones are more star-shaped. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
My God, it's so adorable. And so this is one that you can identify in the field because the side branches, so there are all these like little bundles on the sides. And so there are like 3 sticking out. And then if you were to peel up these ones that are going down the stem, you would see that from that little bundle, there's 7 little branches coming off it. Whereas I think a lot of other mosses, it's only like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
And so if you find that count, you've got it. Oh my god, they're so beautiful.
That's really cool.
And that really dark stem. And then the lollipop.
yeah, the
Lollipop
top of
head.
it is so cute.
Yeah. And Wolfianum is just such a cool name. It's
Yeah.
it's WULF, so it's someone's name. It's not like the animal wolf, but it's still cool. And then these really fibrous ones. And it's just so amazing seeing them all living together and so mixed up. Like there's not just one patch of one type or one patch of another.
So those are the capsules?
No, these are just the little tips of the branches are colored.
Wow. Wow. So that's also Wolfianum?
No, this
different
is
one?
this is another one.
That's so cool. It has like spots.
Yeah, and this one's really 5-sided.
Oh yeah, I can see like a star.
Yeah. I don't know if it's annual growth, but each year it puts like another stem on top.
So is that what that?
I think that's what these little things are. But it's called the stair step moss.
That squirrel wants us to leave.
Yeah, he does. He's the one who ate all the snowberries. I think it's not super common to see the capsules on the peat mosses.
So we're lucky.
Yeah. That has like a little bit like thinner branches because they're in like the low hollows where it's really moist.
So it has the symmetry, the five-sided
Yeah.
symmetry. That's cool. And you said it's like most mosses, or is it mostly sphagnum?
Sphagnums, yeah. I mean, some of the sphagnums, like other ones, it's not as clear. Peat forms by plants dying, and then because it's so acidic and there's so little oxygen in that like wet mat, that the plants don't actually break down, and so then they form these really dense mats. And so I think it's just the shrubs and the moss dying and just sort of building on top of themselves, and that's what makes the hummocks, because the hummocks are what's creating all these little niches for different things to live in, like in the or there are certain sphagnum species that will be like in the lower hollows where it's a little bit more wet, and then there are some that will be more on top of the hummocks where maybe it's a little bit drier and even more acidic.
So they're like super specialized, each
Yes,
species. That's crazy.
Definitely.
And they started evolving like over 200 million years ago, right?
That's crazy.
So how does one know when they're walking towards a bog? How do you know when you're getting close? Like when we're about to enter the bog?
I think definitely seeing the sphagnum moss along the edges. And I feel like in this case, maybe like a little less standing water. But yeah, I think once you start seeing the sphagnum on the banks.
Right. I thought I saw some sphagnum a little bit ago, but it was, what was it called?
It was a haircat moss.
Haircat moss. To me it looked like sphagnum, but I don't
Yeah.
have a trained eye.
Yeah, they are kind of similar.
Yeah, it was kind of spiky and starry looking.
Yeah.
Some work of the beavers. Gonna go over. There's a beaver dam right here. The engineers of nature. And another one here. So you can see the change in the water flow. See, there's this little pond here from this dam. And then the big one there is damming up the bigger pond. And then we have this stream going towards the bog. This is art. This is amazing. certain distance up from the floor of the lean-to, there were teeth marks.
What?
All around the lean-to, like they were trying to take it apart.
Yeah, that's... Ash? Yeah, oh yeah. The bark looks...
Okay, so that is the peat moss.
Yeah, so this is the sphagnum, and this is the hair cap, or polytrichum. And I guess one thing is that a lot of these branches are multiple leaves, whereas the hair cap, it's really like single leaves coming off of the main stem.
Yeah, I can definitely see the difference now that I'm seeing them next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see sphagnum moss on the other side of this. So we're getting close.
So one thing about moss, sphagnum moss, and bogs is that they preserve things very well. You may have heard of bog bodies before, and this is one of the reasons why I originally started developing bog fever last year around the summertime. I had heard about bog bodies before and lore related to bogs, but I never quite got completely obsessed as I have this past year or so. And so in researching and making this video, I've been kind of diving down that rabbit hole and just learning more bog lore that I just want to share some of my findings with you because I just think it's cool. And I think it's fun to make these connections. Right before I went on this bog trip with my friends Josie and Laura, I had listened to this book called Bog Queen by Anna North, and I just absolutely loved it. It got me wanting to learn more about the lore behind bogs. So one of the most well-known things that bogs have preserved are human remains. And if you are easily grossed out or you don't want to see photos or hear references to human bodies found in bogs, then I would maybe skip ahead. And I will put a timestamp of where you should skip to. But yeah, bog bodies are so fascinating to me. So humans are made out of organic material, most carbon. So most of the time, bodies are not preserved very long. So when a body is buried, it usually decomposes pretty quick, within years usually. The bodies that have been buried in bogs in the past, primarily in Northern Europe, these bodies have been preserved for thousands of years in most cases. So one of the most well-known bog bodies is the Tolland man. He was found in 1950 in Denmark in a bog by a family. A lot of the time, these bog bodies are extremely well preserved because the low oxygen, high acidity environment of that moss makes it so that the skin, the hair, the nails, the organs, even the brain are incredibly preserved. It's so crazy how these people lived thousands of years ago. Like I think the Tolland man lived about 2,300 years ago. And when he was first found in the bog, the people who found him thought that it was a recently deceased person that had been buried there, and only later on when it was studied more did they find that it was a man that was buried in a bog over 2,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. There's a lot of different ideas of why exactly people were buried in bogs. Was it ritualistic sacrifice, or was it more of like a burial ritual for really important people? There's also a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that people during this time had a spiritual connection with bogs and saw them as a portal to another realm. So it was a way, some people think, of burying the bodies of maybe important people in these bogs to help them reach the other realm. It's not something that we know all the answers to, and I actually think that's really cool. A big reason for that is because during this time there wasn't written language, so everything we know about these bog bodies and other artifacts that have been found in bogs and the reasons why they may have been there is all based on the physical evidence. Another thing that is debated among historians and researchers is whether or not people who buried these bodies or artifacts knew that the bogs, the moss, would preserve them, or if they just buried them there because of that spiritual connection and seeing it as a portal, or both. And one of the reasons why some people think that they did know that the bog could preserve the bodies is bog butter, which is another thing that have been found in bogs. They're essentially these big chunks of butter that have been found in bogs from thousands of years ago, I think, that may have been placed in the bog almost as a preservation tactic, like almost like a refrigerator, and maybe forgotten about and then left there for thousands of years for us modern humans to find. So that is one reason why some people think that people knew about the preservable nature of the moss and bogs, and that the bodies were put there intentionally to preserve and essentially mummify them. So there's a lot of evidence here that points to bogs being a very spiritual, sacred place for the people living during this time period. And I don't blame them. If you've ever been to a bog, you will understand why people may think that they are sacred. And I think it makes a lot of sense. This is turning out to be a really long section, but I just love all the bog lore, so I'm just going to say a couple more things. Another thing that I found really interesting is I think it's an Irish folktale, the Will-o'-the-Wisp. For hundreds of years, I believe, there were these little twinkling lights that were seen and reported in or near bogs, swamps, or marshes, and it was very widely seen as something ghostly or maybe fairies caused it. There are some modern day scientific studies that have tried to figure out what this is. One of the main leading theories is that this is some kind of micro lightning, they call it, where these tiny little water bubbles filled with methane that can spontaneously ignite and cause these little flames, these little twinkles of light. Not all researchers agree on this, and not everyone's convinced. There's still a lot of mystery around it. You can believe that it's fairies or ghosts, or you can try to lean more towards the science part, or a little bit of both. I personally think folklore is so cool and something I want to learn more about, especially in relation to natural phenomena and geology. But that is for another video. Okay, I think that's all the bog lore that I wanted to include. But this is just scratching the surface, and there's just so many fun things that you can discover when you go down rabbit holes like this. It's so fun. Okay, back to plants and moss and bogs.
All of this is covered in lichen.
Yeah, so that's
what all
why
of this green stuff is. And
Yeah.
they have teeny.
So it's really hard to see the fresh rock surface when there's both weathered minerals on the surface, but also the lichen.
This is really dark.
So this is, I think it's pyroxene, which is a type of mafic mineral in a lot of the rocks here in the Adirondacks. And it's very dark because it has a lot of iron and magnesium in it. It has this geometric blocky shape because that is the crystal structure. So the way that the crystal grows when it's in magma, and as it's growing in this structure that has certain angles of cleavage. So pyroxene is a type of mineral that has a cleavage that looks kind of like a right angle, but it's slightly less than 90 degrees, I think. So the Adirondack Mountains, where I am right now, are a mountain range in upstate New York that are a dome shape. The rocks themselves are over 1 billion years old, but the mountains themselves are pretty young. So the rocks formed over 1 billion years ago. They formed during a continental collision called the Grenville orogeny. So it was kind of before, during, and after that. And there was a lot of volcanic rocks that formed. So a lot of magma that was solidified really deep underground. And then later it got metamorphosed because it was buried really far underground and subjected to a lot of heat and pressure. And then for millions and millions of years, these rocks were hidden underground, and other younger rocks were deposited on top of them when there was a shallow sea here about 500 million years ago. And then at some point, the whole region was pushed up into a dome shape. And there's different ideas of how this happened. One of them is that there was a hot spot at the time underneath that had a plume of magma deep underground that sort of was like a bubble of magma that pushed the rocks upward into this dome. And when that happened, the softer and younger rocks eroded away and revealed the core of the harder, extremely old rocks. And so that is what you're seeing in the Adirondacks. You're seeing the eroded core of that dome. So that's why we're seeing these rocks now that have been hidden and haven't seen the light of day for a billion years. And now they create these incredible, beautiful mountain peaks and valleys that have been also shaped by glaciers. So in New York State and most of North America, starting about 2.6 million years ago was the beginning of the last ice age. So this was the Pleistocene, and there were multiple continental ice sheets during that period, and the most recent one was the Wisconsin glaciation. During that time, there was thousands of feet of ice covering the entire state, or what is now a state. It wasn't a state then. What we see now, like the current topography of the Adirondacks, was kind of finished with the last ice age, where the immense pressure of the glaciers, all of that ice, were grinding down and sculpting the landscape into what we see now. And so because of that, the Adirondacks have this topography of tall peaks and then deep valleys. And so there are parts of the Adirondacks that also have a lot of glacial deposits. So there are parts where there's a lot of glacial outwash. And glacial outwash forms when the glaciers are melting. So at the end of the last ice age, about 10,000 years ago, there were meltwater streams and rivers that were flowing off or under or from the top of the glaciers, carrying sediment and depositing it into these lower areas, basins and depressions in the land. And so that left behind pretty deep deposits of gravel and sand that were sorted. So this is different from till, which is a sort of amalgamation of unsorted clay and silt and sand and pebbles. There's also a lot of depressions here in the Adirondacks that are called kettles or kettle holes. And these are really interesting in that they form when a glacier is melting and it leaves behind maybe a chunk of ice, like an iceberg, while the rest of the glacier kind of moves and melts away. And then eventually that iceberg will melt and there's a depression left behind, where some places, like in the Hudson Valley or other parts of New York or the Northeast, these kettle holes will still be attached to the groundwater, the water table, and they'll turn into a pond or a lake, or they'll just fill in with sediment. But here in the Adirondacks, what's really interesting is because we have that insanely old, really hard, durable bedrock that's at the foundation of all of this, those depressions are not connected to the water table because it's not just sediment, it's non-porous, hard rock. And so because of that, these basins are isolated from the water table. They don't get influx of water from groundwater. The only influx of water is from rainwater, surface water that flows into these basins. Yeah, it's just a really interesting ecosystem here because of the geology, both a billion years ago and up to 10,000 years ago. So this is a cotton grass, but it's actually a sedge.
It's a type of sedge. And then all of this fluff is attached to these little seeds that are called achenes. And these go and float off into the wind. And this is the tawny cotton grass for that kind of orange, rusty. Any pictures yet?
There's a bunch. Crazy rosemary buds too.
Ooh. Rosemary forest.
That are called the danglers. And see how it's dangling on a little stalk?
Yeah.
So they they just dangle and kind of arch so beautifully. And then the perigynia are like this really waxy blue color. And then the scales are, I think, brown. And so just like the color and the shape are just so adorable. It's very waxy on these. Gaultheria spidula.
That's what we're looking at right now?
Yeah.
And it's all over
I saw this creeping.
the hummocks.
Wow.
And so they crawl and they want to be high above where it's not going to be super wet.
So the leaf is curling in?
Yeah, like that edge.
Oh, I see. And you said it's the small cranberry?
Yeah, so there's small cranberry and there's also a large cranberry, and that doesn't have that curling.
Oh, I see.
But even the small cranberry has
Big
some big cranberries.
Whoa!
That's a huge one.
I know. But they seem to vary a lot. There's all different sizes.
So this one is the sheep laurel, which has leaves that are whorled
Mm-hmm.
in their arrangement. And then down here is the bog laurel, which has them opposite. Leaves that are opposite are attached on either side of a stem, like opposite of each other, whereas other plants, they'll be alternating on each side, or they'll be whorled, like the sheep laurel, where they're kind of spiraled around the branch. I think in a place like this that does have, so we walked past a stream that's going through here, and so there is nutrients coming in from the water. So I think maybe the tamaracks can tolerate living here because it does have some nutrient input. Leatherleaf is another really common shrub in bogs, and they have these like kind of golden scaly backs of their leaves
Oh, cool.
and look kind of shiny and leathery.
They look almost like a succulent.
Yeah, and I think they are really what makes up a lot of the biomass of bogs and bog mats.
Oh my god, it smells so good. It smells like pure balsam.
We found pitcher plants. Wow.
The color is just insane.
Moth caterpillars feed on it. This is a great book.
Hole in the leaves that drains the pitchers and stuffs the cavity with pieces of grass to lay eggs and stocks the nest with sting-paralyzed caterpillars as food for its young.
It's like bug goo. Ooh.
It's a cannibal. Oh, there.
Whoa!
Oh my god.
Whoa!
That's an ant!
So we are currently looking in the guts of a pitcher plant from last season that was dried up. So we looked our field guide told us to look inside to see if there were bug remains.
That's a whole bug.
Whoa!
I might have to wash them off to figure out what it is.
Something smells. Actually, I changed my mind. Is this a wasp?
Ooh. Does it have a skinny waist?
It's hard to tell. One of the queens or something.
Oh.
It did look very ant-like at first. But it's because there's such low nutrient environments that the plants had to come up with another way to gain nutrients. And one way to do that is to consume insects. Yeah, the sundew flower stalks are still out. Like, this is probably one. I just kind of crunched it, but...
Oh, cool.
The little sundews have like little basal leaves, and then they send up this little flowering stalk, and so that helps you find them because they're really small.
That's cute. It's cute even when it's dried out.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Usually have like a little hole space to get. the other sides we're seeing the leatherleaf, which is one of the shrubs that makes up a lot of the biomass of the peat mat. Yeah, I feel like this just shows how like hard it is to define a bog because there all are these kind of edge places with bog plants, but then there's a stream running right through it, which is not as difficult. But we are seeing the tamaracks coming back.
Yeah. It's so cool. Like what I tell people all the time that geology, like you can be like a rock detective and figure out things.
What's happening.
And it's so similar seeing you guys like observe what we're seeing as we're walking and like kind of using that to figure out what's going on.
Definitely. And wonder a lot at what is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a good example of how peat floating mats form. So you can kind of see that a lot of the shrubs that are on the edge are kind of leaning into the water. And I think over time, as like the leaves fall or like the sphagnum decays, it starts to like build out into the water. And then you have a floating mat. I feel like because this has so many huge trees, this might not be floating, but who knows like how far the water goes under there. But I don't know.
What is that?
Wait, is it the railroad bed?
Oh.
Yeah, those look like tracks. They
Wow.
looked a little relic so that we don't forget. I think that one.
Let me see you do it first.
Uh-oh. That's intense.
You're not making me want to try it.
That's really bad.
Maybe it's better to cook with.
It's not even really tart, it's just gross.
What is it called?
This is the high bush cranberry. So if it's a cranberry, you expect it to be tart, but
A nice seed.
yeah.
So, high bush cranberry. Here we go. Yeah, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely tart, but in a bad way.
Yeah.
Well, tried it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
Don't
they're
need to
all
eat it
left.
again.
The birds don't eat it.
Yeah. Real.
So Josie just spotted this twin flower, you said?
Yes.
Twin flower, which we saw yesterday, and might mean we're getting close.
Close to the bottom.
Close to the bog, potentially.
The acidic plants are starting to come in.
So this is all the leather leaf or Labrador tea.
This one, yeah. So it's got the kind of shiny metallic scales underneath. And then the Labrador tea is the fuzzy underneath.
Oh, right. It looks more succulent-y.
And then this is the sheep laurel.
Oh, yeah, I see the...
That's got the whorled
flowers.
leaves, so they have 3
Right.
leaves coming out of the same node. And that's really the bulk of the shrubs in here.
And then the tamarack trees everywhere. Wow. So we just saw a Canada jay, and Laura looked up the range, and we are in a very specific range in New York. It's usually just in Canada.
And it says that they have a friendly, inquisitive behavior, which we experienced.
Whoa!
I kind of broke it, but
It's so bright orange.
some kind of, I think it's just bog waxy cap.
I mean, I believe you.
So these are the yellowfoot chanterelles, and they have, they're the same as the golden chanterelles in that instead of having gills like a lot of other mushrooms, they just have these like wrinkly kind of ridges. And then this one has the yellow foot or a yellow stem, and then a brown cap and kind of like a in-between color on the ridges.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's...
And it's hanging out with all the sphagnum mosses.
Yeah, they're buddies. But yeah, some of these are really spicy tasting, and so to help narrow it down, you have to taste it.
Are you gonna taste it?
Yeah.
It's not spicy.
It's a little bitter. It's not spicy. These, the species are really, well, actually now I'm getting a little bit of peppery, a little bit of aftertaste. But yeah, the red russellas are hard to put names on, but tasting them you can at least like distinguish them from each other. Like, this isn't the spicy red russella, but I'm not sure what it is if it's not. They're just fun to try, honestly.
So cute.
Looks like maybe it's a kind of waxy cap, but who knows?
They look like horse feet. Kind of.
Oh, with the little divide in the
Yeah.
middle? Yeah.
Or like right next to the horse tail.
Oh, I think this is actually another little club fungus, and it might be one that grows on truffles, like it parasitizes them. Because that's what I've seen with the little orange. It's called like the rattlesnake truffle club.
So you think there's a truffle under that?
Yes. Let's see.
Whoa.
I thought it was a dead man's finger. Oh, it's here! Oh, this is cool. It's actually not that deep. Oh my gosh, it's like treasure!
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh, I've never found it this whole. Whoa! Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. So I
That
think
is
these are
insane.
called deer truffles. Might be edible, but they're not that group. I think these are the deer truffles, but a lot of rodents do like to dig them up and eat them.
Wow.
And I'm not
That's
sure if these are
crazy.
the spores. I'll have to look more closely, or it might be another fungi parasitizing on here. Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
It's so pretty inside. It's like a little planet.
Wow. That's pretty sick. So what is it inside of it? Is it just like what is inside of a mushroom?
Well, those are where the spores develop. And these truffles are underground, so they really are relying on other animals to disperse the spores. Wow. It smells like wow. Whoa. It's like kind of cinnamon. Or not cinnamon, but like a warm. It smells like candy caps. You gotta smell that, Becky.
Slug slime.
Or snail.
Or sorry, snail.
I don't know, either one. Who knows?
if he had a shell or not. Mushroom. I've
Oh,
never
wow.
I've not seen one like this. There are really just a few different mushrooms that we see a lot in the bogs, but I've never seen one like this.
It's cute.
It's super cute. Look at this little pointy cap.
Oh wow, I didn't even notice.
You're just on the twig of or the stem of a leaf.
Those are tiny.
Can you even get
Yeah. A little bit of bog etiquette for you. We're leaving through this deer path that's already here, and when we're in the bog, we're just following paths that are already created, because one of the biggest threats to the health of bogs is trampling, and a lot of bogs aren't actually accessible to the public because of that, because of the important communities of plants and, you know, the mosses and shrubs that can be hurt from people trampling them.
There's another really cute sedge.
Ooh.
It's
Guys,
called
it's back.
Okay, so by this point, we've established that bogs, peatlands are very cool. They have a lot of really cool plants. There's some really cool lore about bogs and fens and other wetlands. But another reason why I wanted to talk about this today and make this video is not just because of the pretty plants, although they're a big part of it, or the geology or the folklore, but because of the importance of bogs, of peatlands as a whole, to life on Earth and to our survival as a species, as humans. Bogs are, well, peatlands are a vital carbon store. So out of the 3% of the Earth's surface that peatlands cover, they store about 25% of all carbon on our planet. That is about 600 billion tons of carbon that is stored in peatlands around the world. Let that sink in for a second. Sink in. I had to make that pun. And that is more than all of the world's forest biomass combined. And in addition to being these insane carbon stores, peatlands also store a ton of water, as we have been talking about. And because of that, they help prevent flooding and runoff and prevent the risks of fire and drought. They help filter drinking water. And they are just, as we've been talking about and as I've been showing you, incredible support of endemic, unique species. And I think that alone is just so cool and so important, and that alone should be enough to make us want to preserve all the bogs that are still left on Earth, or all the peatlands. If you need more than that reason, see the last few minutes of all the other reasons why you should care about peatlands.